just turned 50. I'm feeling better than ever, looking better than ever, in better shape. The health is getting better, making more money out of me. They about to go to college. The marriage is great. Like, bro, nigga, I'm successful. What are you talking about, nigga?
God be the glory. 94 in them cycles, predatory. Now, origin took shape and told the story. Young man, destined to win, they can't ignore me. Low key, floating on the level. Diamond in the desert, with the basement, the treble. Rebels and devils, etc. Trying to gas me. Death is cold, but the fat light is flash. And I don't see shit with the hunger. If not, the cops together will take me under. Praise be to them times and shit made me think about those who didn't get to stay there. Yeah, thankful. No midlife crisis are grateful. My pen moves pressure and power become the outcome. Follow the beat in my life with or without words. Yeah, thankful. No midlife crisis are grateful. My pen moves pressure and power become the outcome. Follow the beat in my life.
1 2 1 2. We get started in a few. Not gonna keep you too long. Just need to go up and promote real quick.
Because I'm a motherfucking leader, moving like a Trento James through the speaker. Rapping ain't my life, it's my legacy. Recorded history to say I was here, and I'm mad. Just keep spitting through the chatter. This life is a bitch, chaos is a laugh. Bitch, chaos is a laugh. But I'm thankful. No midlife crisis, I'm grateful. I'm in needs, pressure, and power become the outcome. Follow the beats of my life without words. But I'm thankful. No midlife crisis, I'm grateful. I'm in needs, pressure, and power become the outcome. Follow the beats of my life without words.
All right. What up? What up? What up? What be up? Be down? People suing, you know, because they got cooked in a battle. Divisive album, you know, GNX, all that good stuff. Let me see if I can turn this music down a little bit though, because I don't want it to dominate the conversation, so to speak. But we're just gonna get started. Welcome to a impromptu, spur of the moment pop out episode live stream of me getting ready for the best of 2024. On my list here, I wrote 2025. I'm in the future already. Let's see if that music got to be lower. That dude got to shut up. Okay. Mainly because, you know, around this time, as you've seen, right, Apple Music has their recap of what you've been listening to the whole year. Spotify is on the way, from what I understand. YouTube Music started first, which was interesting because they kind of set it up where, at least for me, the videos that are labeled music that I watched are like at the top of my list. So like when the whole battle was happening and I was going to like Kendrick's YouTube to listen to like Euphoria and stuff like that, or watch the Not Like Us video, those ranked pretty high because, you know, that's where I was doing my listening before it hit streaming services. So their list is weird, YouTube Music. But I guess if you use YouTube Music, then it's not weird for you. But you also have like Rolling Stones, who did a top 100, I think, albums of 2024. Probably on this week's show, I'll talk about that. Unless there's another list to talk about. But right here on Hip Hop Now podcast, every year I do a best of 2020, whatever, right? I've been doing it for a minute, especially in video form. It's well, in video form, it's kind of new. But what I found is I needed a system that worked for me, you know what I'm saying, and wasn't too overbearing for people who, want to just know what was hot this year, but they don't want 25, 50, 100 albums. And I feel like it's more beneficial to break it down to at least 15, 10 being great albums from this year, and 5 being what I think were the best of this year. So even if you look at my top 5 and you heard them and you're not feeling them, but maybe you didn't hear everything, the 10 will give you a nice, idea of some of the other albums that were dope. And I'm not gonna lie, this year started off semi-strong because there was a lot of albums that dropped early on that I was kind of like, yo, you just gotta you gotta put these in your top 5 now because they were just that good early on. And then we hit some lulls with certain albums that were highly anticipated that I didn't necessarily like. Some albums that were highly anticipated that I didn't necessarily like a lot, or I was disappointed, but then found myself listening. And then over time, I was like, okay, well, I listened to it that much throughout the year. It has to be one of the best, at least to me. So it's a lot of that going on with me. And what I do around this specific time is I listen to everything I have on my list, because I have my list already, but my list is, changing because of quick drops or albums I didn't know were coming out. Or like, for example, I'm kind of trying to hold off, and I will, for this Dre and Snoop to see where that lands for me. So far with the singles, I ain't gonna front. Shout out to Yentz. Vacation mode. Nah, man, I'm working. I'm just home, I'm working from home. This is my work though. But yo, it's a thing where I listen to everything again, regardless of when it came out. And just to double back, because I was going to say what I thought about the Snoop and Dre singles. I think the first 2 singles were dope. The one with Sting, I'm kind of on. It could be a skip depending on what else is on the album. Also for me, it could be a skip where it lands on the album. If that's like the second to last song on Snoop and Dre's Missionary album, and the last track is dope, and the majority of the album is dope, I might let it rock. Because it wasn't that bad. It just was Snoop and Dre set a tone with those first 2 singles, and now you hear this new song with Sting, and it was kind of like, it's all right. But again, around this time of year, while a lot of people are dropping their best of the year, previously I used to get closer to the new year or closer to the Christmas holiday and then release mine. But I'm going to release my list on the, the 16th? Because my show debuts on Fridays. So I'm going to release my list on the 20th, right? So we still got some time. I think Snoop and Dre drop on the 13th, which is next Friday. So I'll have some time in between there, and obviously their albums I'll review and listen. But going back and listening to the albums that dropped, the albums that I had on my list, it's just more so confirmation of my thoughts, right? Some albums dropped a while ago, some are pretty recent. Some, like for example, Dog Pound's album. We all what is it? We all we got. We all we got. CMB. Um, yo, I was listening to that album daily, like this year, like daily. I kept playing it over and over. It just was meeting some standard for me as far as expectations, but also surprising me in some ways. And it just fit my mood at the time. So I just kept listening to it, right? So albums like that, you go back after months of not hearing it and say, was it just that time? Was it just the mood I was in at the time? And it kind of fit. So I listened to it. Does it sound the same now? So it's just a lot of that, with this list. And to be fair, like there are things that some people like that will not be on my list because you know why? It's my list. That's why. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean it's whack. It just means that I had to take this list and squish it down to something precise and something where I could talk in detail about these albums, or at least give you, regarding the 10, the good 10, I call them. I could at least go and say, yo, this was great because of this real quick. This was great because of that real quick. And the top 5 will be the ones I will, elaborate on. And there's a lot to consider, man. We've had a couple of recent albums shift my list. When I did this best of the year so far, like in June, I had a top 5 that I was like, anything can come along and bump some of these records. But right now, I feel solid about this. Like if there was nothing else better than these top 5 at that time in June, I'm good with this top 5. Just for context, that top 5, and I think most of them survived. One was Lavish Misery with that was Harry Fraud and Ransom. It was basically an EP. I'm not the biggest fan of Harry Fraud's beats. It just depends on who he links with, the type of production chosen. But I was listening to it all the time, right? That was one mixtape, I guess you call it a mixtape, that I've been championing. Davies and Scram Jones for the Love. It kind of had this obviously a love theme, but it was really like the theme was really like 90s sitcom and black sitcom, should I say, like Living Single and Martin. There's a lot of excerpts from those shows and samples, right? Like the Living Single theme is sampled on this joint. And I thought for Dave East, like, yo, this is him doing something different that I could rock with. Because sometimes Dave East could be monotone even within his projects, not just his voice. It could just feel like, didn't you just release this the other day? But this was very different. You know what I'm saying? Hearing him talk about relationships, not necessarily in a sappy way, but in a way that, most dudes, I assume, can relate to. That was one. Shay Noir had an EP. I forget the name. It was something with chocolate in it because I don't have all the lists in front of me. I thought that EP was dope. What else made that? Let me see if some of that stuff is here. I don't know. I don't want to give away my list. Oh, like Husk Kingpin and Ninth Wonder. The Super Goat was on my top 5. So my top 5 at that time in June, so far was solid to me because it was like what I choose for my top 5 is it, yo, give me all the boom, everybody that had bars, give me all the boom bap, everybody that was growling on the mic and threatening you, that's my top 5 is solid. Now my musical palette is a little bit more varied than that. Is that here? Of course it is. I love boom bap and I love hardcore hip hop and I love bars. But hip hop is 51 years old. So to me, enough time has passed for a variety of hip hop sounds to be more acceptable, more palatable. A lot of people have done boom bap in that very same way for decades now. So sometimes you just have the right amount of he got it right or she got it right to get on my list without having to do nothing else. And then sometimes it's, well, maybe you did it in such a way that you stood out from your peers. Also, one thing I wanted to know about top tens, especially or top fives or whatever, 2024, especially as you see new lists drop, is the fact that there are some projects that from notable artists that I know some people haven't heard because they released it exclusively on sites like Even, where you had to go buy it, as opposed to it being on Spotify or Apple Music and stuff like that. And in some cases, some very dope albums. Like Ransom released some dope stuff. But most notably that I wanted to point out, Stove God Cooks put out a joint, I guess you could call this an EP, called Stop Calling Me I'm Cooking. And when I tell you, it's kind of what we've been waiting for. It is. Now, I don't know if it's still available, but since we're doing a live stream, let's see. I don't even know the name of this website, but I'm gonna just put it Even. Wait, what? Yo, Microsoft, I do not want to use Bing. What the, no offense, respectfully, I don't want to use Bing. I want to use Google. Okay. And get right to it. Stove. Let's see. Stove. Nah. Looks like it's still there. No. It's not still there. Look, check this out. I'm gonna share my screen with y'all real quick. That's what it says on the site. That's what it says, y'all. Content unavailable. The content you are trying to access has been removed from Even due to a copyright infringement claim submitted under Digital Millennium Copyright Act by Baby Grand Global Incorporated. Now, can you even see it, or they just, they like, man, you can't even look at it. But as you can see, that's what that was with Stove God. Now, I was able to get it before that happened, and that's probably a case of samples because he has a lot of samples on that joint, and I think that's why I liked it. I'm not sure what it was, but now is literally not available. So the dilemma for me, who listens to that like frequently and consider it one of the best of the year, can I really do that? Given the fact that my list is predicated on providing insight into stuff you can go check out, but if it's not available anymore, can you go check it out? So I don't know. It may wind up an honorable mention. If it's available around the time I record my best of the year, then I'll add it to my list, either top 5 or part of the 10. But another thing that stood out to me is there were a lot of MC, and I say this like it's rare, but kind of was a lot of MC and producer, like one producer albums. I talked about Snoop and Dre getting back together to release. There was LL Cool J and Q-Tip with The Force, but most notably Common and Pete Rock with the Auditorium Volume 1, which everybody loved. I expect to see it at the top, or at least mentioned wherever it may fall, and damn near everybody in hip hop's best of the year list. I would be surprised, unless you're a young head and you kind of listen to a whole nother lane of hip hop, then I kind of get it. You know what I'm saying? But if you kind of listen to traditional hip hop, or you have a varied palette when it comes to the music that drops, then I can understand the fact that it could be on some lists, but not all. But when it comes to the hip hop is going to be on everybody's list. The crazy part about that is towards probably the summer until now, we got a lot of releases, y'all. And it's literally pushed out albums that, you know, and projects and EPs that I have been listening to all year because I just feel like this new thing is better. Still love that thing that I had to push out of the top 5 or the top 10, but this new thing is better. And a lot of the new stuff that's dropped, you know, some of it could be recency bias. But for the most part, when it comes to my list, anything that's new that appears in my top 5 or top 10, trust me, I listen to it thoroughly. And again, going back over every project I have listed, well, it made sense to put some in and take some other things out. Just because, you know, it becomes mono y mono, to be honest. Don't forget Blue and Exile also dropped a joint called Love, the Ominous World. But there is one that I will reveal that's not in my top 5, but I had it in my top 10 because when I reviewed it on my podcast, I was kind of like, it's good, but I don't know if it's best of the year because I didn't like Q-Tip saying running back. Like, I hate that song. I skipped that song. But I found myself listening to it like every day after a while. And I didn't know if it was, you know, my affinity for LL Cool J and Q-Tip or legends in hip hop, or the fact that it was just good and it was different from everything else I had been listening to. But I was listening to it. So I had to consider the fact that I was listening to it in the same ways I talked about with Dog Pound. And I got to tell you, with a lot of these later releases from the likes of Kendrick, Tyler the Creator, and Freddie Gibbs, who else I had to throw in it? Doshi. You know, Doshi is not that recent, but you know what I mean? Like, unexpectedly, I had to find ways to get these in my list, and I had to compare it to what was there. And I'm looking at LL Cool J in the Force, like, I don't know if you're gonna make it, dog. I don't know if you're gonna make it. So we'll see. But right now, it is on the chopping block. When I look at my list, like, let's just say Snoop and Dre joint is like great, and everybody's talking about it, how they love it. Something got to go, y'all. Something got to go. And LL Cool J, the Force, is on the chopping block. Now, some will say, I know you got Rock Marciano on there. And I will say, no, I do not. Now, I reviewed this Marciology joint this year. I listened to it multiple times. I don't think it does anything for me. I think I'm more of a fan of the production than I am of the rhymes. And to me, that doesn't make a best of the year. If for me, right? Like, now, if you love the aesthetic and you love the way he rhymes and his cadence and his voice and the production, it should absolutely be in your best of the year. But when I put an album on and I'm struggling to be invested in what he's saying, not across the board. I got songs on there I like, don't get it twisted. But I just can't consider it over albums where, whether I was making a list or not, I'm really digging them. It's just difficult to do that. And one thing I'll say about my list this year, there are a lot of my favorites who literally are fighting for their spots, right? Kendrick is it because I like the album. I reviewed it right here on the channel. You can go check it out. I know it's very divisive. Some people hate it. Some people love it. Some people think it's cool. It is what it is. I can't say I love it. I love what he did with it. But when you start talking about love, you know what I'm saying? You know, that's a little different. When you start talking the love factor, and I kind of feel like with the Kendrick joint, it's like if I had to place it somewhere in his catalog, it's not top 3, not for me. But I feel like it's one of the better albums, better constructed albums of the year. Um, and that's, he's one of my favorites. But one of my other favorites, Benny the Butcher, put out what, 3 albums, 2 solos, and one with 38 Special. And one of those I listened to a lot, and the other two I kind of like, but I just don't see a place in my list for them because of everybody that's released. And it's not necessarily comparing, like, oh, well, you got Stove Garden. Why not this Benny album? Or you got Kendrick in. And why not this Benny joint is better than that? That's not really how I'm doing it based off of everybody's opinion. It's more so my opinion. When I press play, what happens? Am I engaged? Do I like the songs? Am I trying to learn the lyrics? Do I know the lyrics already? How many times do I just go to it? Hop in the whip, got dropped somewhere. What I want to listen to, okay? Like I said, with the Dog Pound joint, Common and Pete Rock, it was the no-brainer. This is new. I've been loving it. Let me hit play. Let it rock. And then there's some albums I feel like I'm just putting them on to, like, give my favorites their streams. One thing I'm going to say, and this is another one of my favorites, and I don't think it's going to change unless he happens to drop an incredible album within the next couple of days. Conway the Machine is not even in my list. That's unheard of. He's always been on my list because he's one of my favorites. And I like a lot of what he does. And what he's released this year hasn't been terrible. I would say definitely check out every project he's touched, including the project he did with Ransom recently. I just don't feel like I listened and it was better than what I was, including in my list. So obviously everybody's list is subjective. You like what you like. You have your favorites. There's going to be a certain level of favoritism, but I feel like this year for my list to kind of be sketchy on some of my favorites being in my list and some of them not even making it because I feel like they were just better overall projects. I got to keep it 100. I got to keep it funky. Got to keep it real. Like, yo, it's just not going to be there. But then there are projects like, Freeway and Jake One Stimulus Package 2 that seemed like there was a lot of hype when it dropped, but you don't hear a lot of people talk about it. But that album is great. It's a worthy successor to the first Stimulus Package album by those two. So it's things like that where I'm not really being driven by what's popular, because if that was the case, I would have Rock Marciano on my list because I want to make sure those heads know, like, yeah, I'm in alliance with you. But to me, I may not have him, but maybe I have Lupe's Samurai on there, which some heads would be like, yeah, So you can't really follow the crowd. At least that's not what we do here on Hip Hop Now podcast. You just have to use your ears, be a hip hop head. You tap into social media and other lists to see how other people are thinking. I do it more so to see if I missed anything, because that's a real thing. There could be something incredibly dope from an artist and everybody just haven't discovered it yet because maybe they're new or they're underground. And again, I'll reiterate, I feel like my job with this podcast being a news podcast is to put you on to certain albums, or give you my perspective. You may not like Kendrick's new album. Maybe you watch my review and say, oh, I see where y'all coming from, but I still don't like it. That's fine. Or you may say, oh, I didn't catch all of that. Or, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay. Well, maybe I'll run it back. That's the whole point. It's for the music fans. It's for the lovers of music. In this case, hip hop. And there's just so much to choose from. Now, full disclosure, I do not have my own album. that you could kind of hear in the background here, Bed-Stuy Vintage, the album. Shout out to Kill who produced it. I have it out there for your consideration of best of 2024, but I will not be naming my own album and saying, yo, it is crazy, y'all should listen because blah, 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 blah. Of course, I feel my stuff is great and can be a companion next to a Kendrick or a Dog Pound or a Common and P Rock, but that's for y'all to decide. That's not for me to tell anybody and say it should go in there. So again, my best of 2024 list will drop on the 20th, which is a Friday, in audio form and video form. Yes, like last year, I will have a Santa Claus hat on with the hoodie because that's what it is. People kind of liked it last year. Why not do it again? Maybe I'll put hang some stuff, some Christmas stuff around so y'all can see. Maybe I'll return to the Dungeons of Rap, with the cassettes and stuff. But I don't know. It'd be cold in there. That's why I had the hoodie on. But before we get to 20th and that drops, and I'll probably record that in advance and make it available in advance so people can, hit the notification bell to be notified when it goes live. But Friday the 13th, next week, December 13th, that Friday, is a special episode where I will be ranking Ice Cube albums. I don't know how I didn't do this before. The rankings do well on the channel, but they're not gangbusters or nothing like that. They're fun to do. I give the categories names and phrases that are attached to Ice Cube specifically. I've done other people like Common and Ghostface and Snoop. More recently, I did a ranking of De La Soul's albums, so you can check that out on the channel, Hip Hop Pod. But the Ice Cube ranking was interesting because obviously his first 4 albums, I was on them when they dropped. So I know them intimately. But then when he became West Side Connection, which I don't include that in the rankings because I try to keep it solo, but it is a great album. But he was dissing New York. I was like, yo, man, I'm a big fan. You ain't gonna be dissing my own. I ain't buying it. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't even just that. It's when he became the he became that Ice Cube with the carnival hat on the cover and the staff of knowledge or whatever he had in his hand. I checked out. I was like, oh, the Ice Cube I like is gone. So I went back and I listened to Ice Cube's entire catalog, including his newest album, Man Down, and I rank them. And what's interesting about these rankings is not really the fun of going back and listening to all these albums and putting them in an order, you think they are and giving your opinion and a couple of jokes here and there. But you realize, like I did with the De La joint, that certain albums you thought were bad weren't that bad. You just didn't hear the entire album. Like, for example, War and Peace Volume 2. I realized I never heard that album. Because once he got to the Don Mega, I was like, oh, I'm out. So there's different situations that arise when you're ranking. It's just a fun thing to do. And, a lot of people like to watch stuff. I watch stuff like that on YouTube all the time. But please know all of this content will be available, obviously, in video form on YouTube at Hip Hop Pod, but also on audio form, except for the Ice Cube ranking. Rankings I don't put in audio form only because you're really only getting 75% of what's good about those shows, because visually it's just better to see the albums and see the categories and stuff like that. At least that's what I assume. But maybe I'll have something else, on the side for people who are listening and instead of watching. And you can listen to podcasts on YouTube. But Also, please know, and you can see it right there, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers right here on YouTube. Right now, we are probably at 760 something. So we almost there. You know, we hit that 800 and there's literally only 200 to go. I appreciate everybody that pulled up, hit that subscribe button, whether you were here because you like the shorts that I post on YouTube, right? Which aren't all this kind of stuff. Or you just like content like this. And I'll do more live streams in the future. I just was trying to find a way to do them where they had purpose. You know, I get it. Sometimes you can just pull up. People will watch you like this, like, he drinking water on the stream. I'm watching. I can't watch people do that, but some people just want to hang out with you, know you're there live, hit the chat, you know, things like that. You know what I'm saying? Bars. But I'm going to do more live streams, and video wise, I have some other things down the line. I don't know if I'm going to do a lot of interviews because I don't do interviews, and it's a slippery slope once you start doing interviews, because I already get emails from all kinds of people from all walks of life. You know, hey, you know, I'm a classical artist, but I did this hip hop thing. Can I get an interview? No, man, no. Who want to hear from you, Jack? Like, who? You know what I'm saying? So I didn't do many interviews, but I did a great interview recently with Marcus J. Moore, who wrote the De La Soul book, High and Rising, which became controversial and dominated social media, at least my feed, until Kendrick dropped and everybody forgot about it. But I think it's a very insightful interview that will give you a perspective on the debate of whether it should be supported or not, which is everybody's prerogative. But that's the only interview officially that I've ever done for this podcast. And I kind of feel like there are more that can come. There's some people who ask for interviews where I can see an angle where I could do it, but I don't know if the audience will be interested enough. So we'll see. And also, look, sidebar. Also, like, I'm gonna just level with y'all since it's a live stream. I got a request for an interview with Spoonie G. Now, some of y'all don't even know who that is, but whether you were a kid like me in the 80s or even older, you know who Spoonie G is. He's a pioneer in this game, and some consider him a legend. You know, formerly a part of Treacherous 3. He had his own singles and hits at the time, like Godfather and stuff like that. And somebody reached out to me, and it was hood. You know, I know hood because I come from the hood. It's not really to slight the hood, but I know what I'm reading when I'm like, hey, that's not proper grammar. But regardless, I was like, I could probably do that interview, but I don't necessarily do interviews. And two, my biggest fear is the fact that I'm not in a studio where I can bring a guest in with a mic, a professional environment, and capture the conversation in the highest of quality. Feel what I'm saying? So I would have to rely on whatever equipment Spoonie G has. And I'm not trying to judge, and it may still happen. But the email was like, Spoonie just came home. Some of y'all only on the internet. Y'all don't know what that means, or you know because of the internet. You know, I came home mean brother was locked up, okay? I don't know if his internet is there. I don't know if he has to use a phone, if it's going to be the highest quality video and audio. I don't know if he can have it set up where it's stationary as opposed to, you know, like this, like how some people do interviews, like, yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? Hip hop was crazy back then. Hey, yo, what up, man? Yo, I don't want that, because then they'll ask me, yeah, then they'll ask me, yo, when is it dropping? I'll say February 1st, 19 Never Hate, because it's a terrible interview because you can't run your audio. So those are the things I think about and why I haven't done more interviews. I can't confirm. I can't. I don't even know the word secure or whatever the word may be because I'm blanking right now. I can't guarantee that their audio and video will be good enough. Don't even have to be excellent, just good enough for people to hear and see them. So again, he's not the only one, but at the end of the day, I want to be careful and I want to be confident that any interviews I provide will be good on the audio side and on the video side. So we'll see. I'm holding on to the email. We'll see. What the Yinz, what you say? Plus Mrs. Smith not letting just anyone in her house. Forget Mrs. Smith. I'm not letting anyone in my house. I don't even imagine. I'm gonna just leave it alone. But there you have it. You know, Best of 2024 is loaded. I've been listening to some of the albums I have on my list, just trying to confirm this. I don't have Freddie Gibbs here, but he probably gonna get in there because his album is dope. Which means somebody got to go, and it is I'm struggling in that category. But nevertheless, you can follow me on everything except Twitter because I'm not on there anymore. At Vegas World INC, as you see, where is it? Right here. Boom. Everything. You can literally type that into TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I think Facebook. I have a Hip Hop Now podcast page. And Blue Sky, which is really new. I've been on there for a little while. But it's what I use. It's my Twitter alternative in this instance. But definitely hit me up. Let me know what you're thinking about. And before I go, let me know about an album you think I should consider in my best of the year. I've listened to a lot. If you look at my Instagram, I post everything I listened to this year, regardless if I loved it, hated it, or whatever, because I was listening to it. So I put like now playing. If there's something you think like, yo, did you check out this or did you check out that? Let me know. I ain't listened to everything. Today I was listening to an album that Young Chris had that I was like, yo, this is dope. I had no idea this was out. So you can leave that in the comments section below. Thanks for everybody that checked out the stream. Obviously, this will be available on the channel, you know, for people to check out. And I respond to comments, but most importantly, subscribe. Hit that like button and share with people you know enjoy this kind of content. To my Twitch followers and people like, you on Twitch? I don't usually do this on Twitch, but I do a lot of gaming. I do only gaming on Twitch. So if you looking like, oh, you be playing games, I don't necessarily play with the camera on because really this is all you would see. Like I don't talk a lot. You know, even if I'm playing Call of Duty multiplayer, I might be like, yo, take that, mother. Like I might say that, but I don't necessarily go live there unless you want me to. I don't know. So until next time, y'all, I'm not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.